Oh, hello, yeah. Well, all the joys of Sunday. Probably not very many, let's face it. Wet Sunday afternoons. Anyway, yeah. Today, let's talk about value for money, because politicians always demand that they get value for money. Must have value for money in the public services. And the people that demand that, it's pretty much all of them, basically, never seem to apply it to other areas of the economy, yeah? Yeah, if you're going to sort of buy some clothes, do you always go for value for money? Is that the most important criteria? Or if you're going out for a slap-up meal, is it always value for money? Will you always find yourself stood around a burger van in the wee hours of the morning because it's quite cheap? And the answer is no, of course not, because there are other criteria at play. However, with public services, it always has to be the lowest possible cost. And I was drawn to this in Schools Weekly, the house magazine of schools. Oh yes, can schools really afford to cut assistant heads? Ministers point to rising numbers of assistant heads in cost-cutting advice. Or cost-cutting, value for money, yeah. What's behind the rise and what is a cut doable? Yes. Now, when I did become a teacher, very long couple of decades ago, there were various sort of routes you could go in teaching. One of the ones that I was quite interested in was something called an advanced skill teacher, and that's where you would carry on teaching in the classroom, but you would have a kind of career progression in terms of pay. You know, that kind of thing about, not paying monkeys peanuts. It's that kind of thing. You get what you pay for, don't you? Well, no, obviously not in the public services, because they've got to be value for money. But with the various cuts and everything that were going on in education, what you tended to find, for example, when I was an assistant head, was that, you just ended up being the fireman, or fireperson, I suppose we should say, in these politically correct times. Yeah, you just ended up filling in. So when I was an assistant head, I can remember one year when I had a 100% teaching timetable. That meant that I was teaching all day long, 5 days a week. That's actually technically illegal under the working practices, but whatever, I was a member of management, so we kind of got on with it. And yes, also I had my own form, which, because it was a special needs school, involved quite a lot of work as well. And at the same time, I was an assistant head, so I had basically to look after the pastoral stuff in the school. So in essence, I was doing, certainly at least 1.75's worth of jobs. Still, that was value for money, wasn't it? That was my productivity going up. And I'm guessing that the rise in the number of assistant heads is to do with actually staff retention and trying to keep people on. Because if you do cut things and make people's lives more miserable, then one of the ways you can stop doing that is, to give them some form of career progression or perhaps pay. I know, silly, isn't it? Because you can get value for money that way. No. That, though, is probably what's going on. But you will never hear this stuff in the media. It is simply that they will go to various talking heads that will give them, the value for money style that they want. And I'll give you a classic example of this from yesterday. This is from the Telegraph. 1 in 4 teachers now part-time. Rise in flexible contracts triggers fear over a lack of continuity in pupils and spiralling costs. Yeah. Oh, God, spiralling costs. Yeah, value for money as agencies fill the gaps. Yes, because, of course, if you're going to cut things and make people's lives more miserable in work, there's a good chance that, they're not going to want to be there all day long. Someone like me in my 60s don't really want to be in a school all day long because it's really tiring. Refer my right honourable gentleman to what I was saying about being an assistant head. Over the last few years, about once a week, I get an offer from various agencies to go and be an assistant head somewhere, and I always have to ask questions about what my teaching timetable will be, and they always say, you'll have a limited teaching timetable. And I always just know that what that will mean is, when you come in, your teaching timetable will theoretically not be very high, but after a month or so, it really will be. That's why I tend to say no to those jobs. Wouldn't you? And the answer is no, because that would be letting the side down. Anyway, it's worthwhile bearing in mind the talking head that Daily Telegraph got to speak on this. It's your friend and mine. You've probably seen him around, Chris McGovern. So let's see what he had to say, because he's the chairman, of the Campaign for Real Education. Yeah, kind of a bit of a giveaway, that, I think, in terms of the title of it as to how old the organisation is now. So anyway, he said parents are rightfully alarmed when they're told that their child is to have a part-time teacher or a supply teacher. It is self-evidently damaging. Or maybe funding schools. Anyway, for pupils, continuity continuity of teachers is of immeasurable importance to their learning and well-being. Children, especially young children, hate constant disruption and change. It undermines the crucial pupil-teacher rapport that contributes so valuable to learning and to classroom discipline. Yes, and there he is. Yeah, you may well have seen him. He tends to be sat in front of his bookcase, basically at home, metaphorically in his mum's bedroom, because it's just him. The entire campaign for real education is simply Chris. Has been for a long period of time. He used to be a head teacher, grant him that, but he's not been in schools or been a teacher for 10 years. He is simply a talking head that they go to whenever they want him to say the right thing, that they want him to agree with them on education. That's his job now. That's his job now, like so many of these other grifters do like pointing out. It's their job. And this has become a major problem in what we see, because now what we have is, like with the campaign for real education, is we get all of this sort of plethora of people cropping up on places like GB News, and they're always the centre for or the campaign for, but usually the centre for, aren't they? Yeah. And they invariably will produce reports that, highlight the dreadful thing that GB News finds about, well, probably black people, let's face it. And the classic one that's been highlighted recently is Rob Bates, yes, Master Bates, who is from the Centre for Immigration Control. See, centre, yeah, and he's the research director, which, sort of brings in mind this idea of a very busy office with sort of bustling interns and various people on the phone looking at computer screens, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, if you're the head of research. But the problem for Rob, of course, like most people that take one look at what he does find out, is that, well, he works alone. It's just him. Now, he got into a bit of a kerfuffle, or there was a bit of a kerfuffle with one of the centre's reports, you see, because it claimed various things about immigrants, which of course meant that he got that treasured slots, and still does, on GB News, yes. Now, me being me, you see, I will always go and look at the website and see where the research is, because apparently it's all decent research. Link down below if you want to play this game for yourself. But if you go to any of the publications of the aforementioned Master Bates's centre and click on read the full report, nothing happens. Or, correction, what you notice after a while is that it's simply opened up a new tab. Click on it again, opens up a new tab. I thought first of all, maybe it's just a glitch with this one report. But you can try it with all of the reports, and none of them will open on the full report. Now, if it was once, it's a glitch. If it's all of them, it's by design. So Rob, Master Bates himself, is making a living coming up with who knows what. Apparently 103% of his statistics are entirely true, yeah. And at the same time is being paid, no doubt, very, very nice amounts of money by various people to produce stuff which probably isn't true. Because if it was true, then we would find the numbers, wouldn't we, Rob? But we don't. Various other people have pointed this out, but he's still there doing the same thing. And the reason I'm highlighting this today was because, well, he had the ultimate audacity to write this in The Critic. Who's advising the migration advisors? Ooh, that sounds serious, doesn't it? We deserve more transparency when it comes to who and what influences British immigration policy. Ooh, yeah, transparency. That would be good for us, Rob, wouldn't it? Let's read the first bit. Transparency is a pillar of liberal democracy. Indeed, yeah, I said that about Lord Frost yesterday, didn't I? Another one that isn't going to be particularly interested in transparency. This is the refrain we hear time and again from left-leaning outlets like LBC and Byline Times. This is mainly because their business models hinge upon the parroting of Tufton Street conspiracy theories or talentless campaigns against the expense claims of some fringe backbench MP to agitate witless FBPEers. However, were they to truly be the bastion of democratic openness, they would be equally vexed by the hazy decision-making that surrounds Whitehall's immigration policy. As one of the key issues in the country, surely it's right there must be some sunlight shone upon those calling the shots. What a brilliant thing that would be, Rob. Now, Rob, of course, when he writes this stuff, must be laughing all the way to the bank. Somebody is keeping him quite busy, that he doesn't have to do any real work as far as I can make out. Yes, of course, he has links to reform. But somebody, like a lot of these organisations, is paying him to do this because it doesn't cost various other groups to fork out, let's say, £5,000 a month. And when you look on some of these ones that do actually publish their monies, you do notice there's an awful lot of very regular monthly payments of like £5,000 and things like that. I'm not saying that that is the way the system works, but I'm just saying it really looks like it, because that's me doing my research, and here I am showing you whereabouts I found it. Yes, not like Rob. No. Now, the problem realistically with all of this, of course, is that I think it's about time that we had that level of transparency, and it's about time that we had a government, and I'm really hoping that at the next general election we get a government that basically puts a stop to this kind of lying. It's lying. I'm sorry, but if Robert can't produce numbers to back up his numbers, then I have to assume he's lying. So each time I see him now on GB News having a nice chat to, well, it won't be Mike Graham anymore, but one of the others, I have to assume that he's lying. He probably wouldn't like that, and he might well find that unfair. But let's see the numbers, mate, okay? That's all we're going to ask, because of course this is the whole way that we go through these things. We have these people that are employed as experts, not quite sure about what, not quite sure, sitting in their mum's bedrooms, being paid to tell us things that probably are vastly untrue. That is propaganda, all right? That is simply propaganda, one way or another. And it really shouldn't be allowed. I think the first thing to do would be to say, well, okay then, okay, who are you, where are you from, and who pays you? Those are the major ones, because that would be, transparency, wouldn't it, Master Bates? Not going to get it though, are we? Because, of course, the circle has to go round and round and round. I could insert another rude word there, but I'm not going to. After all, there are so many that we can already apply to Master Bates himself. Yes, whenever you see these people, always assume that it's just them in their mum's bedroom being paid to tell you something they've effectively just made up. Meanwhile, somebody like me gets pilloried because I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, do have a lovely Sunday if you can do, and do make sure that you go to church, unless of course you're not a Christian, in which case, well, I don't know, probably harass them on the streets and continue that war against Christmas. Somebody's got to do it. Enjoy.